Planets and Places in Human Collectives, Part 7, Saturn. Step into a government office, an old courthouse, a factory floor, a prison rehabilitation center, or a cold research laboratory, and you've stepped into Saturn's domain. These are places that value endurance, order, responsibility, and time-tested structure. Saturn-ruled collectives are not designed for excitement. They are built for function, for legacy, for karmic consequence. In charts where Saturn is strong, especially in the 1st, 6th, 10th, or 12th house, you'll find individuals drawn to institutions that carry societal burden, uphold law, or manage systems too heavy or rigid for the rest. Saturn governs all places linked to hard labor, delay, decay, or containment. Prisons, hospitals, aged care homes, land registration departments, archaeology departments, bureaucracy, tax offices, sewage systems, and karmic institutions like asylums or courthouses. It is the collective force that holds society accountable. A well-placed Saturn in Capricorn or Aquarius often places people at the helm of durable systems, those who accept constraint as sacred duty and guide others toward collective sustainability, responsibility, and resilience. Saturn-Sun collectives reflect formal authority and governance with moral weight. Civil service boards, election commissions, judiciary panels, and state-sponsored ethics committees. These environments are hierarchical, disciplined, and burdened with responsibility. In Capricorn or Leo, this pairing in charts often produces institutional stewards, leaders who carry structural pressure and operate within highly codified systems, with little room for ego but enormous scope for duty. Saturn-Moon collectives emerge in institutions that manage human suffering, geriatric care, trauma therapy centers, refugee rehabilitation programs, grief counseling, or disaster relief logistics. The atmosphere is heavy but necessary. In Cancer or Capricorn, the individual often becomes the emotional backbone of a weary system, supporting others through slow and difficult transitions. The group runs on containment, compassion with boundaries, and emotional endurance. Saturn-Mercury groups handle detailed, repetitive cognitive tasks, public record departments, actuarial firms, tax auditing teams, machine programming units, or legal transcription bureaus. These collectives thrive on structure, exactness, and adherence to process. In Virgo, Gemini, or Aquarius, the chart holder is likely to become the thinker who understands system fragility and ensures its maintenance through cold logic and stable communication. Saturn-Mars collectives are labor-intensive, often hazardous or physical. Construction crews, mining corporations, industrial safety boards, or engineering brigades in government infrastructure. These teams build and defend the bones of civilization. The collective energy is rigid, brave, and exposed to risk. In Aries, Scorpio, or Capricorn, the chart holder may carry karmic leadership over collective endurance, being tasked with managing crisis through restraint and control. Saturn-Venus collectives shape aesthetics into legacy. Heritage textile weavers, antique restoration guilds, cultural preservationists, or classical music archives. These environments move slowly, but with devotion to form, proportion, and time-tested beauty. In Libra, Taurus, or Capricorn, this conjunction produces artists of discipline, those who lead groups preserving ancient or endangered crafts where beauty lives through structure. Saturn-Jupiter collectives exist within large bureaucratic spiritual or educational institutions, national heritage universities, monastic planning boards, or ecclesiastical law institutes. The group is traditional, respected, and enduring. It does not innovate easily, but what it holds for centuries. In Sagittarius, Capricorn, or Pisces, individuals with this combination manage Dharma through form, being caretakers of collective wisdom who must function under heavy karmic rule. Saturn-Rahu groups are often bureaucratic disruptors, urban planning agencies grappling with modernity, data surveillance boards in national security, or industrial tech collectives attempting to modernize rigid institutions. The mood is tense, intense, and highly consequential. In Aquarius, Gemini, or Scorpio, this combination can create a bureaucratic visionary, one who sees both the cracks in the system and the algorithm to replace it. Saturn-Ketu collectives are monastic, skeletal, often hidden or severe, ascetic orders, ancient documentation teams, sacred cave traditions, or forgotten custodial communities in remote lands. These collectives do not seek visibility or growth. They maintain what time has nearly erased. In Pisces, Virgo, or Scorpio, the chart holder may lead or protect a vanishing legacy, working with few words and many lifetimes of karmic weight. Saturn, Venus, Mercury groups represent disciplined curators of communication and aesthetics, legal publishing houses, documentation teams for classical arts, or linguists preserving vanishing dialects. The environment is subdued but enduring. In Taurus or Virgo, the group may operate through routines that feel thankless but are the very backbone of culture and law. Wherever Saturn dominates, the collective serves time. These aren't social spaces, they are systems of necessity. Institutions shaped by Saturn must hold the collective weight: poverty, disease, old age, justice, waste, memory, and truth. Saturn doesn't foster belonging through affection. It does so through karmic integration. In natal charts, Saturn shows where one must build brick by brick, often in silence, often without thanks, but always toward the collective future. Because in the world of Saturn, work is worship, and the work you do together becomes the soul of the society that survives. Saturn-Moon-Mars collectives often appear in institutional crisis management, disaster recovery agencies, war veteran support organizations, emergency legal aid for displaced populations, or urban reconstruction authorities. These are places where collective trauma must be carried, repaired, and redirected with discipline. Saturn gives the structure, Mars provides the execution, and Moon contains the emotion. In Capricorn or Cancer, this combination in charts often indicates a karmic duty to hold space for damage and rebuild trust from the ground up. Saturn-Mercury-Rahu collectives are often the engines behind regulatory tech, legal automation, digital surveillance infrastructure, or artificial intelligence ethics bodies. These groups handle abstract data with immense karmic consequence. The collective psyche runs on logic over emotion, speed checked by caution, and visibility filtered by control. In Aquarius or Virgo, individuals with this trio may find themselves as quiet architects of systems that affect millions, writing the invisible code behind civic governance. Saturn, Jupiter, Rahu collectives are megastructures of ideology, governing boards of global religions, state-funded moral education programs, and cultural ministries that must modernize without diluting tradition. These groups move slowly, but when they act, they shift societal direction. The group ethos is complex. Duty must meet relevance. In Sagittarius or Capricorn, this combination appears in those who hold vision while enforcing boundaries, acting as moral bureaucrats who balance dharma with time. Saturn Sun Rahu shows up in political machinery that has hardened into legacy. Advisory panels to heads of state, internal think tanks in authoritarian regimes, or corporate legal arms that define long-term policy. These collectives work under pressure, often behind the scenes, carrying institutional memory and karmic accountability. In Leo or Capricorn, this trio in charts often marks individuals who must navigate between public authority and private burden. Saturn, Venus, Rahu, and Earth signs often creates aesthetic institutions with karmic scale, government-run heritage textile councils, beauty licensing regulators, or elite cultural conservatories with gatekeeping roles. These collectives define beauty through hierarchy. In Taurus or Capricorn, the group prioritizes preservation, control, and slow refinement. Those with this combination in their chart become custodians of societal taste, whether as curators, critics, or restoration experts. Saturn, Mars, Rahu, Ketu shows up in karmically charged survival groups, post-conflict rebuilding missions, labor union strategists, or technical teams resurrecting collapsed systems. These collectives endure extreme challenge, working across bureaucracy and intensity with suppressed heroism. In Aries, Scorpio, or Aquarius, individuals may find themselves deployed where no one else can go, building order from karmic ashes with ruthless resolve. Saturn, Venus, Ketu is seen in monastic collectives of aesthetic withdrawal, minimalist design traditions, Buddhist art monasteries, or sacred geometry preservation teams. These collectives are profoundly detached, devoted not to commerce or trend, but to timeless balance and symmetry. In Pisces or Virgo, charts with this combination often reflect souls that preserve sacred aesthetics without attachment to identity, brand, or reward. Saturn, Jupiter, Ketu builds collectives that guard spiritual law, Vedic calendar calculation groups, temple committees managing rituals across centuries, or intergenerational trusts that guard ancestral land tied to dharma. These are not innovation-driven environments. They are vaults of karma and responsibility. In Sagittarius or Pisces, individuals with this placement become record keepers of cosmic rhythm and duty. Saturn, Rahu, Mercury, Moon leads to complex social management collectives, mental health policy boards, welfare systems coordinating across caste and digital divisions, or advocacy groups working on trauma-informed legal reform. These groups carry both emotional weight and societal mistrust, yet they operate because they must. In Cancer or Gemini, such a combination in a chart reflects a soul that translates sorrow into system, empathy into process. Saturn in water signs with Ketu often indicates ancestral grief collectives, those that archive, mourn, and honor what has been lost through time. These may be communities organizing memorials for collective tragedies, teams working with land justice, or caretakers of abandoned sacred sites. These groups do not celebrate, they commemorate. In Scorpio or Pisces, Saturn here gives the native the burden of ritualizing memory, protecting pain with reverence. In every form Saturn takes, it demands accountability. It does not ask whether the collective wants to be responsible, it shows them that they must be, whether through physical burden, karmic repair, cultural preservation, or silent sacrifice. Saturn's collectives mirror the weight of time, and those who carry it with dignity don't just serve the present, they preserve the future. Saturn makes sure that what matters isn't just built, it endures. Saturn, Moon, Venus collectives often take shape within therapeutic caregiving that requires aesthetic or emotional dignity, such as palliative care centers with artistic expression programs, trauma-informed design initiatives in public housing, or beauty therapy services for the elderly or survivors. These teams serve with restraint, grace, and a deep respect for human vulnerability. In Taurus, Cancer, or Libra, individuals with this blend often lead or stabilize collectives, where healing comes through quiet elegance, consistency, and enduring support, rather than dramatic gestures. Saturn, Mars, Mercury collectives specialize in coordinated labor with high precision, civil engineering departments, emergency logistics networks, or industrial automation companies. These environments are built around execution, discipline, and functional efficiency. There's very little emotional bandwidth, but immense reliability. In Virgo, Capricorn, or Aries, this trio produces individuals who lead by organizing action under pressure. Logisticians, systems engineers, or field officers keeping large-scale operations running smoothly. Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Moon collectives reflect the stewardship of sacred spaces. Committees maintaining temple towns, boards managing old universities with religious history, or custodial groups that oversee classical arts with moral purpose. The mood in these environments is ceremonial, weighty, and intergenerational. In Taurus, Pisces, or Cancer, charts with this cluster often belong to those who blend duty, beauty, and reverence in a long-form cultural or religious project. Saturn, Sun, Mercury, Venus collectives often reside in institutional branding arms, national archives that craft government messaging, formal design councils for civic monuments, or long-term cultural policy think tanks. These collectives determine how power is presented, how taste is defined, and how legacy is communicated. In Leo, Capricorn, or Libra, individuals with this combination often serve as visual architects of tradition, translating structure into symbolism. Saturn, Rahu, Moon, Venus collectives work in hyper-modern adaptations of old emotional systems, AI-driven mental health platforms, beauty tech labs for dysmorphic therapy, or grief counseling collectives using neurodesign. These are emotionally heavy but future-leaning spaces where boundaries must be enforced and compassion must be encoded. In Cancer, Aquarius, or Taurus, such placements produce individuals who blend emotional labor with high-tech platforms and long-range ethics. Saturn, Ketu, Mars, Venus groups often work in environments that are spiritually, physically, and emotionally austere. Celibate artist monastic orders, sculptors of temple architecture, or ascetic communities preserving martial arts as spiritual path traditions. These collectives are often invisible to the public eye, but internally rich with memory, discipline, and purpose. In Scorpio or Pisces, such charts mark those who create in silence, serve without applause, and perfect their craft as a kind of worship. Saturn in air signs with Mercury or Rahu often leads collectives that manage global complexity, carbon credit verification boards, space law regulation councils, or large-scale tech ethics commissions. These environments are abstract, deeply specialized, and often cold. In Aquarius or Gemini, The chart holder is typically a structural thinker, someone who creates scaffolding that guides how global systems relate, store, and scale responsibility. Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, Rahu collectives might be found in elite cultural institutions that walk the tightrope between beauty, ethics, and expansion, major museum governing bodies, cultural funding boards, or UNESCO heritage projects. These teams are powerful yet cautious, tasked with preserving value while managing geopolitical consequence. In Libra, Sagittarius, or Capricorn, individuals with this pattern often become diplomats of taste, those who make the case for timeless things in ever-changing contexts. Saturn, Mercury, Ketu, Mars collectives embody institutionalized intelligence through effort, military training academies for intelligence officers, forensic science departments, or constitutional law writers working within war tribunals. These collectives are brutal, quiet, brilliant, and ethically exhausted. In Virgo or Scorpio, those with this combination in their chart carry the mental discipline to bear witness and create order from chaos, often in systems that others abandon. Saturn in the 12th house, or with Ketu in water signs, often generates hidden karmic service collectives. Monks who maintain temples no longer visited, caretakers of land holding ancestral trauma, or scholars preserving endangered languages in isolation. These spaces aren't known to the world, but they hold its history in their silence. In Pisces or Cancer, such configurations produce individuals who spend lifetimes protecting what must never be forgotten. Every layer of Saturn reveals a collective that is slow, bound, tested, and enduring. Whether in governance, caregiving, preservation, labor, or silence, Saturn's institutions teach the soul that meaning is not what you express, but what you uphold. Saturn's work in collectives may go unseen, but without it, society would collapse under its own weight. These are the souls who hold the walls, maintain the archives, and light the lamp in the room long after the crowd has gone home. Planets and places in human collectives. Part Who. Step into a nightclub, a biotech lab, a cryptocurrency startup, a viral content agency, or an underground movement headquarters, and you'll feel the unmistakable pulse of Rahu. Unlike Saturn's slow tradition or Jupiter's ethical expansion, Rahu thrives in disruption, amplification, boundary breaking, and the thrill of the unknown. Rahu-ruled collectives are unorthodox, sensational, and often ahead of their time, or dangerously out of step. In charts where Rahu is dominant, especially in angular houses or conjunct luminaries or lords of key bhavas, the person is magnetized to groups that chase intensity, visibility, innovation, or taboo. Rahu governs places associated with illusion, intoxication, ambition, manipulation, fame, and foreignness. Modern equivalents include advertising firms, film and media production houses, nightclubs, AI labs, espionage cells, digital influencer collectives, political spin teams, and fringe occult societies. These are collectives that operate on the edge of ethics, often glamorized but rarely grounded. Rahu in Gemini, Aquarius, or Scorpio will often draw individuals into environments where information is weaponized, image is currency, and nothing is quite what it seems. Rahu-Sun collectives reflect bold, often inflated authority, PR consultancies for politicians, elite influencer networks, or authoritarian propaganda machines. These teams are obsessed with image control and narrative domination. In Leo or Aquarius, this conjunction may produce a charismatic leader who attracts people into high-visibility environments that promise status but hide anxiety. The collective thrives on performance, spectacle, and unrelenting ambition. Rahu-Moon collectives shape emotional mass psychology, trend-driven parenting communities, viral healing movements, or lifestyle influencers who trade in vulnerability. The mood here is unpredictable, amplified, and emotionally charged. In Cancer, Pisces, or Libra, this pairing in charts often shows people who tap into collective feeling with uncanny instinct, nurturing followers while subtly feeding off their emotional energy. Rahu-Mercury collectives dominate digital communication, meme pages, anonymous leak forums, digital activism labs, or algorithm hacking content farms. These groups operate through intellectual restlessness and clever subversion. In Gemini or Virgo, chart holders with this combination become technomancers of language, wielding information like magic, manipulating message, visibility, and timing to ride the algorithm of collective thought. Rahu-Venus collectives are seductive and viral, fashion disruptors, underground art houses, erotic performance troupes, or nightlife-driven creative startups. These groups use beauty and style as tools of rebellion and reinvention. In Taurus or Libra, this shows chart holders who know how to craft desire and project aspiration, often pulling people into curated illusions of glamour or intimacy. Rahu-Mars collectives are intense and sometimes volatile. Underground sports rings, hacker cells, radical activist groups, or venture capital-backed growth cults. These teams chase outcomes with speed and aggression. In Aries or Scorpio, individuals with this combination create collectives that run on adrenaline, disruption, and the willingness to crash through limits for the sake of glory, profit, or ideology. Rahu-Jupiter collectives expand belief into empire. Megachurches, spiritual influencers with global reach, political evangelism, or psychedelic education platforms. The mood is visionary, amplified, and prone to moral inflation. In Sagittarius or Pisces, this shows individuals who build cult-like followings around teachings that blur the line between guidance and grandiosity. Rahu-Saturn collectives operate in high-stakes institutional disruption, policy-hacking think tanks, technocratic social control systems, or massive AI-driven governance prototypes. These groups attempt to rewrite the rules from within. In Capricorn or Aquarius, such chart holders become builders of systems that may outlive them or collapse under karmic weight. The collective works with power structures, but seeks to replace or reroute them. Rahu Ketu collectives are paradoxical, silent yet famous, cultish yet mainstream, clairvoyant yet data-driven. These are spaces like underground spiritual tech labs, esoteric publishing houses, or identity-erasing lifestyle brands. The collective seeks transcendence, but gets trapped in its own simulation. In Scorpio, Pisces, or Gemini, this axis often shows individuals drawn to unravel the code of collective illusion, toggling between performance and disappearance. Rahu with Mercury and Moon in air or water signs often builds emotionally contagious platforms, apps for mental health trends, astrology meme collectives, or narrative-based virtual influencers. The group thrives on mood manipulation and timing. In Libra, Cancer, or Aquarius, the collective acts like a psychic hive, responding to cultural waves with uncanny precision and shaping public desire in return. In all Rahu-dominated collectives, the underlying current is hunger. Hunger for more, fame, reach, edge, truth, or freedom. These environments feel like they're leaning forward into the future, not yet sure what they're building, but compelled by its glow. In the natal chart, Rahu shows where one magnetizes or merges with mass ambition, with collective shadow, with the archetype of the outsider who's about to become everyone's obsession. Whether it's in crypto forums, neon-lit studios, spiritual fandoms, or digital revolutions, Rahu builds the spaces that culture will either regret or revere a decade later. Rahu-Mars-Saturn collectives are often seen in high-pressure, high-risk systems that balance innovation, enforcement, and systemic overhaul. These include covert ops in cybersecurity, surveillance tech teams working on predictive policing, or aggressive policy reform units operating under authoritarian systems. The collective energy is sharp, relentless, and often secretive. In Capricorn, Scorpio, or Aquarius, the native may operate as a strategist or executor, someone who pushes dangerous reforms under the cloak of protocol, using force in slow, institutional ways. Rahu-Sun-Mercury collectives dominate public discourse, especially through media manipulation and brand reprogramming. These groups may be behind political PR campaigns, cultural narrative-shaping agencies, or high-budget misinformation control cells. The tone is authoritative but calculated. Everything is scripted to gain mass traction. In Leo or Gemini, this combination in a chart often produces a public relations architect, someone who pulls the strings behind visibility and perception. Rahu-Venus-Saturn teams appear in aspirational branding with institutional reach, luxury fashion corporations with controversial histories, major cosmetic giants with AI aesthetic tools, or online platforms selling curated identity. These collectives use beauty, control, and karmic weight to create lifestyle empires. In Libra, Taurus, or Capricorn, these charts produce image makers whose influence is cold, commanding, and engineered for long-term consumer behavior. Rahu-Jupiter-Sun collectives are megastructures of ideological power, nationwide education reformers, charismatic religious political hybrids, or global wellness movements with embedded propaganda. The collective here is dazzling on the outside and devoted to a larger-than-life mission inside. The group's self-image borders on divine. In Sagittarius, Pisces, or Leo, the individual may be the guru industrialist, someone who exports faith, philosophy, or morality at viral scale. Rahu Moon Ketu collectives are emotionally hypnotic, trauma recovery platforms turned mass movements, psycho-spiritual networks, or deeply immersive theatrical collectives. These groups oscillate between care and chaos, intimacy and withdrawal. In Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, the chart holder can serve as both container and escape hatch, someone who pulls people into collective emotional transformation while remaining strangely untouched. Rahu with Mercury, Venus, Mars, and air signs can result in collectives of hyper-creative, multitasking visionaries, NFT artists guilds, fashion gaming hybrid studios, or meme accelerators that weaponize culture. These groups operate at lightning speed, with aesthetics designed to go viral. In Gemini, Aquarius, or Libra, the individual may lead through trend logic, understanding how to architect resonance, reaction, and repetition across fragmented digital identities. Rahu Saturn Ketu collectives operate within dying empires, revolutionary breakaways, or secret societies overseeing ancient power transitions. These could be splinter councils from religious regimes, legacy intelligence groups, or cloaked reform bodies rewriting karma at structural levels. In Aquarius or Scorpio, this combination may appear in charts of those who function as karmic architects, building the new from ruins of the old, always hidden, always vital. Rahu Jupiter Ketu collectives hover between dogma and transcendence. Think digital cults, post-guru spiritual labs, or communities formed around AI avatars of ancient teachers. These spaces seem to offer freedom from tradition while being entirely dependent on its skeleton. In Sagittarius or Pisces, this can show a figure who plays the role of disruptor sage, leading others into truth by first breaking all accepted ideas of what truth should look like. Rahu in the 10th or 11th, especially conjunct multiple grahas, brings collectives that chase collective identity rebranding. These are not necessarily industries. They are scenes, movements, or factions attempting to rewrite what the mainstream means. Whether it's queer futurism, alt-spirituality, deepfake ethics, or synesthetic music therapy, the Rahu-driven group wants to redefine reality, not in small pieces, but in the collective imagination. Ultimately, Rahu-driven collectives act as mirrors and magnifiers of societal hunger. They chase what society secretly wants but won't admit: fame without substance, beauty without age, truth without tradition, love without accountability. And yet, through this very pursuit, Rahu catalyzes evolution. The people who lead or emerge from such collectives often carry both fascination and fear. They are here not to maintain order, but to pull culture through its own illusion, to shake the story until the mask slips. With Rahu, the collective becomes a stage, not for what is, but for what is almost believable. And that almost is where transformation begins. Rahu, Venus, Moon, Mars collectives are deeply sensory, emotionally charged, and sexually expressive. Tantric wellness retreats, erotic theater troupes, feminist fashion movements, or nightlife-driven self-expression platforms. These are groups that explore taboo emotion and beauty through intensity. The mood is hyper-personal yet performative. In Taurus, Cancer, or Libra, this combination often produces leaders who embody seduction, rebellion, and healing through pleasure, creating spaces that feel both liberating and volatile. Rahu, Sun, Saturn, Mercury forms collectives at the intersection of authority, control, and narrative manipulation, governing bodies of mass media regulation, political speechwriting cells, or black-budget think tanks managing public perception. These teams have structured influence over collective opinion and reality. In Capricorn, Leo, or Gemini, the chart holder often operates behind scripted power, designing the visible facade while embedding long-term ideological influence. Rahu Ketu Mercury Mars drives collectives that oscillate between attack and withdrawal in digital activism. Cyber resistance hubs, hacker collectives using whistleblower tactics, or occult-influenced strategic communication cells. These teams function like energetic switches, activating sharp, disruptive narratives, then disappearing into silence. In Gemini or Scorpio, the chart holder may carry a karmic skill to penetrate the illusion of language, decoding, disrupting, and disappearing before consequences land. Rahu Moon Venus Jupiter produces emotionally compelling but morally flexible collectives, massive spiritual influencer groups, feel-good wellness apps with hidden monetization engines, or large-scale romantic counseling brands monetizing trauma healing. The vibe is magnetic, nourishing, and expansive, but always hovering at the edge of ethical ambiguity. In Cancer, Pisces, or Libra, this combination may yield personalities who lead with care while building empires out of collective vulnerability. Rahu Mercury Sun Jupiter appears in collectives that act as educational influencers or info authority hybrids, ed-tech disruptors, virality-focused online mentors, political commentators with a guru complex. These groups teach, persuade, and dominate thought leadership ecosystems. In Gemini or Sagittarius, chart holders often act as bridges between mainstream discourse and alternative ideology, packaging belief into digestible charisma. Rahu Mars Saturn Ketu points to extreme karmic engineering collectives, high-risk secret organizations, militarized occult research teams, or breakaway civilization planners. These groups operate under total secrecy, with a mission not just to disrupt, but to end and replace entire paradigms. In Scorpio or Capricorn, chart holders with this combination are often karmic enforcers or structural assassins, dismantling what no longer serves humanity, regardless of how brutal the process may be. Rahu, Jupiter, Venus, Mars collectives operate through spiritual glamour, mass yoga tourism retreats, music festival spirituality cults, or divine masculinity femininity influencer networks. These groups offer higher truth in a hyper-curated aesthetic wrapper. In Pisces, Sagittarius, or Taurus, this pattern often produces leaders who teach ancient concepts through trend-laced, emotionally activating formats, appealing to a global aspirational audience. Rahu, Mercury, Venus, Ketu can manifest in collectives dealing with memory erasure, nostalgia curation, or romantic storytelling designed to manipulate identity, luxury brand campaigns that rewrite cultural belonging, retro-futuristic art studios, or heritage revival teams with occult undertones. In Virgo, Gemini, or Pisces, individuals with this combination may construct experiences that alter collective memory by design, restaging emotion through visuals, sound, and script. Rahu in the fourth with Saturn or Ketu often builds rooted but restless collectives, ancestral land movements with political vengeance, underground communal living experiments, or alternative history preservation groups. These teams seek belonging through rupture. Their work is about reclaiming the past, not to preserve it, but to reframe it entirely. In Cancer or Scorpio, the chart holder often becomes the karmic archivist or emotional saboteur, both restoring and haunting what once felt like home. Rahu with Jupiter and Saturn in the 11th amplifies futuristic network building, blockchain governance, next-gen academic platforms, predictive economic modeling teams, or political startup labs. These collectives are less about people, more about influence across systems. In Aquarius or Sagittarius, the individual operates as a knowledge engineer who translates ideology into infrastructure, building entire realities from narrative architecture and collective aspiration. Rahu's combinations always mutate the nature of the grahas it touches. It turns Venus from graceful to provocative, Moon from nurturing to emotionally performative, Jupiter from ethical to expansion-hungry, and Saturn from stable to obsessive. Wherever Rahu coexists with others, the collective formed is not content with what is, it exists to chase what could be, even at the cost of boundary, tradition, or identity. These collectives break karma, bend perception, and build the future in ghost code. They are ahead of their time, but never without consequence. Rahu ensures that even illusions leave impact, and that even shadows cast long legacies. Planets in Places and Human Collectives, Part 9, Ketu. Step into a meditation cave, an abandoned monastery, a manuscript preservation vault, or a healing circle held in silence, and you've entered the realm of Ketu. Where Rahu amplifies, Ketu subtracts. Where Rahu entangles, Ketu dissolves. Ketu-ruled collectives are not built for visibility or ambition. They exist as portals to release identity, dissolve attachments, and touch something beyond form. In charts where Ketu is strong, especially when placed in Trikonas, the 12th house, or conjunct the Moon or Venus, the individual is magnetized to groups that operate quietly, intuitively, and often outside the boundaries of mainstream society. Ketu governs places of seclusion, renunciation, past life memory, and otherworldly focus. This includes ashrams, hermitages, spiritual research caves, old temples, graveyards, archaeological excavation sites, and secret mystical traditions. In Pisces, Scorpio, or Sagittarius, Ketu draws people into collectives that are more fields of silence than formal organizations. These are communities of seekers, healers, custodians of the forgotten, or the karmically tethered few, who carry the weight of ancient knowledge and personal surrender. Ketu-Sun collectives are devoid of overt leadership, but carry inner light. These could include mystical brotherhoods, silent retreats led by elders, or solar cults where the master is never named. The mood is austere, clear, and ego-free. In Leo or Aries, this may manifest through collectives that dismantle hierarchy while preserving essential truth, spaces where Dharma speaks, not the person who carries it. Ketu Moon collectives appear in grief ritual circles, ancestral healing groups, or spiritual maternal lineages passed through silence rather than doctrine. These teams operate in memory, intuition, and loss. In Cancer or Pisces, the chart holder may become a spiritual caretaker, helping others process emotional residue that isn't fully theirs, working through karmic waters with compassion and detachment. Ketu Mercury collectives work in cryptic transmission, esoteric language schools, manuscript restoration projects, or spiritual scribe traditions where sacred texts are copied by hand, not spoken aloud. In Gemini or Virgo, such combinations yield individuals who don't teach, in the modern sense. They transmit frequency through words, symbols, or silence. Ketu-Venus collectives preserve sacred art without attachment to recognition. Icon painters, temple dancers who remain unnamed, or aesthetic healers whose work lives in private spaces of transformation. In Taurus or Libra, the collective is beautiful but anonymous, refined but inward. The chart holder often embodies understated devotion to form, style as prayer, not display. Ketu-Mars collectives are disciplined but otherworldly. Monastic martial art lineages, ancient ritual protectors, or desert ascetic communities that train the body as a vehicle of spiritual clarity. The group is intensely focused, often celibate, and unconcerned with external war. In Scorpio or Aries, the individual may lead quietly by action, modeling control through invisibility. Ketu-Jupiter collectives operate as wisdom lineages, non-preaching knowledge circles, lineage-based astrology or mantra traditions, or underground Vedantic schools with no public face. These spaces do not recruit or advertise. They appear to those karmically ready. In Sagittarius or Pisces, this combination often produces wanderers or scholars whose life work is hidden but indelible. Ketu-Saturn collectives carry burden with silence, untouchable castes maintaining temple grounds, forgotten custodians of karmic sites, or ancient cemetery workers who clean the bones of history. These collectives endure, unseen and often unthanked. In Capricorn or Scorpio, the native becomes a guardian of invisible dharma, holding structure without voice, service without status. Ketu-Rahu collectives exist in split realities, rebellious mystics, displaced spiritual lineages, or futuristic ghosts of ancient tribes. These may look modern, but carry soul fragments from civilizations long gone. Their contradiction is their signature. In Gemini or Sagittarius, these groups oscillate between searing insight and quiet exile. The individual may carry a lifelong sense of being off-axis, yet magnetically pulled towards strange, fated group missions. Ketu-Venus Moon-Mercury collectives shape gentle, invisible healing through beauty and memory, grief tenders who sew garments for the dead, perfumers who blend oils from sacred groves, or poet scribes who write in forgotten dialects. These groups whisper restoration through art. In Pisces, Cancer, or Virgo, the chart holder often becomes a soul stitcher, repairing karmic fabrics wordlessly, emotionally, and with grace. Ketu-Mars-Rahu collectives are simultaneously militant and mystical, rebel spiritual orders, martial orders that train and vanish, or resurrection cults rooted in past destruction. These are often short-lived but karmically explosive groups. In Scorpio or Aries, the individual may be a vessel for fierce karmic correction, entering a group to destroy and rebuild a truth hidden beneath chaos. Ketu in the 12th, especially conjunct benefics, often signals involvement with soul collectives that don't operate through logic at all. Astral temples, ancestral dreaming networks, or long-term interplane training schools, remembered through intuition and recurring vision. These collectives have no websites. They reach only those whose soul was already part of them. In all Ketu-led collectives, the core dynamic is release. They exist not to build, dominate, or convert, but to empty, purify, and complete. These groups don't brand themselves. They often don't survive in form, but their essence shapes the undercurrent of culture, healing, and sacred memory. In the natal chart, Ketu reveals what the soul knows without needing to prove. And in collective life, it creates pockets of karmic withdrawal, places where we no longer perform identity, but gently remember what came before it. Ketu Moon Mars collectives are often forged in emotional endurance and karmic action, post-trauma healing camps, silent rescue missions, or ancestral warrior clans that carry a memory of pain and redemption. These are groups that don't speak much but act with spiritual instinct. In Cancer, Aries, or Scorpio, chart holders with this combination are called to perform acts of protection, purification, or release that have no audience and no reward. Their collectives move in cycles of emotional intensity, loss, and spiritual resilience. Ketu Mercury Saturn forms collectives of precision in spiritual austerity. Vedic calculation teams, occult logic schools, or karmic accountants of forgotten libraries. These are dry, intellectual spaces, often housed in silence or ancient order. The group is mentally disciplined, karmically bound to accuracy, and emotionally detached. In Virgo or Capricorn, the individual may become the bearer of subtle timelines, scriptural integrity, or karmic record-keeping that protects sacred knowledge systems. Ketu Venus Sun collectives often surface in ritualized art that honors ancestral lineage or divine impersonality. Temple dancers who perform for deities, not audiences. Art restoration monks who repaint faces of gods lost to time, or artisans whose work is buried with the dead. In Leo, Libra, or Pisces, the group creates timeless beauty but erases the ego behind it. The chart holder serves as a stylist of the soul, channeling elegance not for fame, but to honor what came before. Ketu Jupiter Mars builds collectives of sacred discipline, fire ritual communities, tantric monk orders, or war priests who conduct spiritual warfare not against enemies but ignorance. These are high-resonance groups with minimal tolerance for distraction. In Sagittarius, Aries, or Scorpio, these charts belong to those who act decisively, speak rarely, and correct karmic pathways through potent, quiet ritual action. Ketu Rahu Saturn collectives are rare and karmically volatile. Groups split between renunciation and ambition, structure and collapse. These may be exiled monks turned rebels, abandoned spiritual orders attempting survival in modern times, or ideological purists within large institutions. The group structure is fragile, but sacred. In Aquarius or Scorpio, chart holders carry the task of navigating dual timelines, past wisdom versus future adaptation, often holding the silent glue of a disintegrating sacred system. Ketu Mercury Venus Jupiter collectives operate as soft-spoken, karmically bound education environments, manuscript calligraphy schools, traditional music gharanas, or women-led storykeeper collectives in rural cultures. These groups are sensory, articulate, and utterly rooted in karmic rhythm. In Taurus, Gemini, or Pisces, these combinations appear in charts of those who carry generational knowledge in their hands, voice, or breath, often teaching without claiming ownership. Ketu Moon Jupiter Saturn shows up in caretaking institutions with karmic fatigue, old orphanages run by fading traditions, hospice centers built on ancient service models, or spiritual NGO remnants operating in difficult zones. These collectives do not seek to grow. They exist because they must, carrying emotional and moral duties from previous ages. In Cancer or Capricorn, these individuals often function as the final anchor of fading missions, those who close the gates without bitterness. Ketu Sun Rahu Mercury manifests in collectives that shape and erase public identity, ghostwriters of spiritual celebrities, behind-the-scenes media monks, or branding collectives that vanish after constructing iconic messages. In Gemini or Leo, the group works with light and shadow, the architecture of voice, the surrender of authorship. Chart holders navigate the paradox of influence and invisibility with karmic precision. Ketu in air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, with Venus or Mercury, often creates collectives rooted in sacred neutrality, ethical design circles, nonviolent communication cells, or truth and reconciliation forums where words are measured and egos dismantled. These are groups that consciously step away from judgment. The individual works to remove bias from aesthetics, fairness, and expression, bringing objectivity as a spiritual offering. Ketu, Mars, Venus, Moon, and water signs can show up in collectives that operate through embodied ritual grief, death doula circles, womb healing retreats, or karmic forgiveness communities that use sound, oil, tears, and touch to release intergenerational trauma. In Cancer or Pisces, this shows a vessel for ancestral feminine pain transformed through rite and rhythm. The group becomes a container for unwinding silent histories. Ketu with Saturn and Ketu in Dusthana 6th, 8th, 12th often indicates collectives formed to balance heavy karmic debt. Devotees born into suffering, monks caring for lepers, silent vow practitioners in conflict zones. These groups often seem invisible or cursed from the outside, but on a soul level, they are undergoing vast karmic unraveling. The chart holder may be the final link in a chain that has stretched across lifetimes, serving in silence to end a lineage of burden. Where Rahu groups chase identity, Ketu collectives are about its release. These are not places of performance, but spaces of purification. The group mission is not creation, but closure, of cycles, of wounds, of karmic contracts. Ketu leads collectives that don't make headlines. They open portals, clean up ancestral leftovers, transcribe the unseen, and carry out the rituals no one else knows are required. The souls in these groups have already lived the noise. Now they serve in silence, finishing the work they began long ago. Ketu Mars Sun collectives often appear in traditions of self-annihilating discipline. Shaolin monks, Vedic fire ritualists, warrior ascetics, or desert hermits who practice tapasya through physical severity. These groups are nonverbal, minimalist, and confrontational, not with society, but with the self. In Aries, Leo, or Scorpio, the chart holder may lead or train within collectives where ego is burned out through bodily austerity and ritual heat. The group's purpose is not to build a legacy, but to burn the illusion of selfhood through action. Ketu Moon Venus collectives manifest in devotional art that is ephemeral and deeply nostalgic. Folk singing circles that preserve forgotten love songs, ancestral weaving guilds, or memorial art installations that honor the dead without explanation. The collective doesn't seek beauty to impress, but to remember. In Cancer, Pisces, or Libra, the individual may serve as a gentle conduit for sorrow, expressing karmic emotion through elegance, ritual, and impermanence. Ketu, Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn, collectives are custodians of forgotten systems, calendar preservation committees, obscure language documentation projects, or orthodox scriptural sects preserving rare commentaries. These groups are structured, deeply traditional, and resistant to external validation. They exist to uphold forgotten cycles of knowledge. In Virgo, Sagittarius, or Capricorn, chart holders may act as unacknowledged scholars, spending decades transmitting wisdom with no expectation of fame. Ketu Sun Jupiter in fire signs shows collectives built around spiritual sovereignty that later shed their public faces. Abandoned ashrams of charismatic gurus, ex-members of idealistic communes, or founders of sacred spaces who later walked away. The group's rise and fall is karmic. Its leader often leaves in silence, having fulfilled a soul task invisible to the world. In Leo or Sagittarius, the chart holder carries the burden of having led without clinging, burned bright without staying attached. Ketu Rahu Venus in Taurus or Scorpio shows dualistic collectives of attraction and renunciation, sexual alchemy orders, beauty-based esoteric lineages, or spiritualized seduction arts. These groups dance between indulgence and detachment, sometimes appearing contradictory. They deconstruct desire through experience. The chart holder is often both the magnet and the mystic, attracting others into deeply transformative but often destabilizing aesthetic practices. Ketu Mercury Moon in air signs fosters collectives that communicate through absence, nonverbal healing circles, telepathic communion groups, or poetic ritual spaces where the unspoken says more than words. These collectives are subtle, sometimes invisible. In Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius, the chart holder often expresses or holds collective silence, acting as a psychic antenna or ritual translator for things that language cannot contain. Ketu, Saturn, Venus, Mars, collectives may form around karmic restoration of form, reconstruction of lost monuments, preservation of broken sculptures, or rehabilitation of vanished art forms. These spaces are sacred not because of what they produce, but because of what they mend. In Capricorn or Taurus, this pattern shows a soul building beauty back into time after karma took it away, restoring form with reverence, not ego. Ketu in the fourth with Moon or Venus may generate collectives of ancestral grief or forgotten motherhood, matrilineal memory keepers, womb-based initiatory paths, or silent kitchens that preserve ritual through scent, texture, and rhythm. These are not formal institutions, but karmic hearts, passed from grandmother to granddaughter. In Cancer or Pisces, the person may carry collective feminine loss that becomes art, food, or prayer, quietly sustaining karmic healing across lifelines. Ketu in the 10th, conjunct Rahu in 4th, often shows collectives of reverse power, organizations dismantling patriarchy through land rituals, lineage work, or deep homeward spirals. These may be land protectors, ancestral home reweavers, or anti-institutional educators. The collective doesn't seek to dominate externally, it seeks to reclaim soul land. In Scorpio or Aquarius, the native may undo public constructs in order to return the group to its spiritual interior. Ketu, Mars, Jupiter, Mercury. Collectives might resemble disciplined spiritual combat schools of the intellect, classical logic academies teaching Nyaya, silent debating circles in monastic institutions, or philosophical duels where victory is ego erasure. In Sagittarius or Aries, the group uses sharpness to dissolve identification, training minds like blades to cut illusion. The chart holder may be a spiritual tactician of truth, guiding others to destroy falsehood through clear perception. Ketu, Sun, Saturn, Ketu in Dusthana houses may involve collectives that exist to carry out ancestral karma in difficult terrain, families of exorcists, karmic healers of cursed lands, or lineage stewards of tomb rituals. These groups operate outside culture, cleaning up karma that modernity pretends doesn't exist. In Scorpio or Capricorn, the individual often becomes the grim protector of Dharma's leftovers, completing what others refuse to acknowledge. Ketu-based collectives never look like teams. They feel like karmic knots, soul families, or echoes of vows taken in lifetimes where form still mattered. Their purpose isn't worldly success, it's spiritual completion. They pull people together not to build anything new, but to remember, release, or repair something old. These are not startups or empires. They are dissolving mandalas, built only so they can be lovingly swept away when the karma is done. And the souls in these groups? They rarely introduce themselves. They simply recognize each other and continue the work.